recorded on January 16th, 2013 in front of a live internet audience. This week's Design Chat is brought to you by youarebeautiful.com. Thursday, February 6th, check out the opening reception of As You Are, A Decade of Beautiful at the Green Exchange at 2545 West Diversey in Chicago. Search for youarebeautiful.com on Facebook to find out more. Hello and welcome to Design Chat, the best live design discussion on the internet. I'm your host, Ryan McGovern. On Twitter, I'm at Hoopajube and at DesignChat. Every once in a while, we get together with some of the coolest people from the design community and chat. Tonight, we are talking to Mr. Deroy Peraza of Hyperakt. Bravo, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Leslie Puck in the chat room says hi. Everybody in the chat room, tell us where you're watching from. I always like to hear that. I have to put a thank you out real quick to Hyperactivo, who actually was the person who suggested that Hyperakt be on tonight. Said they loved your work and they really wanted to see you on the show.
Thanks, Hyperactivo. Good name.
We've got Alan Skiles in Pagoda. We've got Leslie Puck in Manitoba, Canada. Yeah, I've had a drink. That's okay. It's all right. It's Canada. Tonight it's Canada.
Sweet. Maybe I should go get a drink.
You should. You should. I'll go ahead. Will it take you a second? Can you get one? Do you want to get one?
Actually, yeah. It'll take me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Be right back.
Go ahead. I'll do some announcements.
All right.
We did take a little break over the winter, if you will, over Christmas and New Year's. We are back. We've got a couple shows lined up tonight. Next week, we're talking to Tyler Fink. I'll say this again at the end of the show, of course, who helped create the app called Piction, P-I-C-T-I-O-N. It's a very cool photo and typography app. You should go check it out. Also, you can look him up. He goes under Seriously, S-R-S-L-Y. I may be misspelling that, but that's okay. So yeah, look forward to that and lots of good shows. We've got things coming down the pike for, no, I'm not going to tell you guys that. That's for a later date. Manitoba, Canada. Good to see you, Leslie Puck. Funny that your name is Puck and you're from Canada and that the hockey season is about to start. I heard they're very excited about the hockey season there. Smiles from Leslie Puck. What do you got, Deroy?
I got a little whiskey. Just the bottom of the
whiskey.
Bottle. Yeah. Cheers, everybody.
We hit the top of the bottle tonight.
Nice.
Fresh bottle here.
We got a
please tell me I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
You are indeed.
Good.
Yes.
I don't feel like an idiot anymore, although I do. Sometimes I do. Okay, let's kick it off. First things first, we always have our guests do a quick introduction of themselves, who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Awesome. So I'm Deroy Peraza. I'm one of the creative directors and one of the founders of Hyperakt. Hyperakt's a small studio in Brooklyn. We've been around for 11 years. And really what we've tried to do over the years is to kind of focus on helping change makers tell their story. So most of the clients that we work with are in the sort of social good space, primarily because it's just the work that we felt the most fulfilled doing. And so I lead a team of 11 along with a partner, and we approach projects from a branding perspective and try to incorporate data as a means of visual storytelling through a lot of the work that we do. You want like more
Harvard
bio background stuff?
Yeah, if you want to jump into that, go ahead.
All right, so just a little background. I was born in Cuba. I grew up in Miami. Went to Parsons School of Design. Love New York City. Lived in Barcelona for a little bit. That was a really big influence on sort of my career path and our design sensibility. It really kind of played a big part in helping to steer us. What else? Married, have a little 11-month-old son. There's a little background.
I got a boy who's 10 months old, so good timing.
Sweet. You walking yet?
He is kind of. If you hold his hand, he can walk, and if he's got a little truck that he holds onto a handle that he can walk with that. But he's not quite on his own yet. But he's definitely mobile and dangerous.
Yeah, I hear that.
Harvard Business Review said of Hyperakt, by having a bigger purpose, it just might be that Hyperakt is building a 21st century design studio. That's pretty impressive. Harvard Business Review. Them are some smart people.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a shock because usually when nice stuff is written about us, we have a little bit of a heads up. It's either because we talked to somebody, or I mean, they interviewed us or something. And in this particular case, we found out about it through just Google Alerts, and clicked on the link, and they had written that, which was kind of fantastic. I you know I think what they were trying to get at is that we don't, as a studio, we really don't decide what business we take on or what projects we do because of the bottom line. We've been around for 11 years, so we know it's important to be sustainable. We're not, because we work for NGOs and nonprofits doesn't mean that we work for free. But the decision making that goes behind everything that we do is guided by a couple sort of core values. And those core values are that, again, like I mentioned before, we believe that if we can use our talent and our skills to help people live a better life, to inform people, to educate, to push processes of change forward. Any of these things are sort of better uses of our talents, we feel, than selling things people don't need. And so, there's a place for that. I have nothing against people who work in the ad agency world. We've done it, and we've kind of have gotten to where we are because we've been able to see the things that we like doing and the things that we don't like doing. It just wasn't really for us, and so the culture of the studio is very much guided by not just the fact that they're talented designers, but we all sort of have a common understanding of values and of sort of our reasons for doing what we do. And it's a very small, tight-knit team. There's a lot of collaboration. We're always up in each other's grill. It's a very social space. There's no walls in the space. And so, there are a lot of other sort of facets to being at Hyperakt that I think make it a really good environment to be creative.
I want to remind the audience here, I'm going to do it real quick. If you put questions up, we'll take them. This is not like watching television. This is an interactive experience, people. This is not like just sitting back and watching an interview, although you can sign up for the podcast on iTunes. Just search for DesignChat and do that if you can't be here for the live ones. But if you are here for the live ones, like the people in the chat room, you can ask questions. And if you've got a camera, you can even get on camera and really be part of this conversation. So I definitely urge you guys to do that. It's important to take advantage of those opportunities. Sorry, what?
Yeah, I love talking to people. I mean, it's something that we try to encourage a lot in our physical space. So this is kind of a new experience for me, but I'd love to hear what people are curious about and what they want to know.
Well, you guys exist very prolifically in the digital space also, so it's only appropriate that eventually it led to this, right? Thank you again, Hyperactivo, for suggesting Deroy and Hyperakt. So there's that. So yeah, you were saying you've been around for 11 years. You know, you've obviously got this great mission, this great vision. Everybody on your team is kind of on board. We talk a lot about hiring practices when you're looking to build your team. You know, the types of questions you ask and what are the personalities that fit in best. Obviously, you said there's no walls. You guys are in each other's grill all the time. So you've got to be able to get together and be able to be around those people for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. What are the
Yeah.
criteria that you set? What are the main things you're looking for when you are hiring people into your group?
Well, I mean, obviously, a good range of skills and an aesthetic sensibility that adapts well to our client base and to our aesthetic sensibility is a you know an important part of that. But beyond being talented and having a good aesthetic sensibility, we have to get a sense that you're passionate about working on this kind of work. If if I get a sense that you have an itch and a curiosity to go work on really glossy, awesome agency stuff for big, huge brands, um, then maybe this isn't the place for you. And we do work with some big brands. We work with Google. We worked with Adobe. We the brands that we work with aren't small, but the projects that we do are generally not glossy projects. They're very uh, they're rooted in a deep sense of urgent communication, and and there is an inherent pragmatism in the work that we do, and we see that not as a limiting factor, but as a challenge and as something that can really be turned into a beautiful piece of communication. It just also has to
Mhm.
serve a purpose, and it needs to have a function. It needs to sometimes communicate very important messages. Sometimes they're very heavy hitting messages. Sometimes it's just about approaching a complicated problem and trying to explain it in a simpler way so more people can understand it and learn something from it. So if we see that a designer is not really excited about that challenge, about sort of taking on these complicated ideas and trying to explain them so more people can benefit from them,
Mhm.
then it's probably not a good fit. I think most of the designers that come to us have that passion and have that sort of focus, or they wouldn't come to us. I mean, from time to time we do get designers who probably are obviously not a good fit, but it's an important part. And then beyond that, I mean, we just like I said, we're very social, very open bunch, and we're like a small family. I mean, coming to work here. We try as much as possible to not make this feel like a work environment. We get things done. We're very aware of being efficient, and we're very productive. But this is where we are for the majority of our day when we're awake. So it needs to be a place where we can have fun and we can engage with each other and really get to know each other so that we can really work well together. So if we feel like the personality of the designer wouldn't be a good fit within the set of personalities that are here already, um, then we have to kind of intuit that. And just to kind of be clear, I think a lot of studios are sort of led by principals who really function more as kind of benevolent dictators that
Mhm.
really guide everything that the studio does, and everything's kind of revolves around their ideas and around their kind of whims. And we very much try to stay away from that path. We try to as much as possible erase hierarchy, and we try to involve all of our designers in decision making, and that includes new hires. So, since there are no walls, whenever somebody comes in to show a portfolio, everybody can hear the interview. Everybody's sitting, at most 15 feet away from the interview. So people often come up and kind of interrupt and look at the portfolio midway if they hear something they're interested in. And then, we all talk afterwards and see, how everybody perceived the interview and what they thought and whether they think it would be a good fit within the environment. And like we do that, we do the same thing for new work. When we get
Mm.
a new a request for a new project or we get a phone call, there are projects that are kind of they're obvious answers. Like, we're going to be excited about them and we're going to and we'll take them. And then there are those that obviously are not a good fit. But there's a lot that are kind of in the middle. Projects that maybe might interest me more than other people or what have you. And in those situations, we open it up to the team and we just say, here's the gig. Here's what the problem we need to solve. Is this something that you guys are going to be passionate about doing? And if not, then we probably wouldn't take it.
It's something that smaller companies always seem to be a little bit better about, making sure that all of the employees who are involved are invested emotionally and mentally in the product, right? You don't see that a lot in the larger sort of agency corporate level, right? There are so many levels of hierarchy that you have to deal with that usually the designer, the creative, is one of the last people to find out about major details of projects, right? So
Yeah,
that's
I
got to be
mean,
an interesting contrast, having been in both of those worlds for you.
yeah, I mean, it really being in sort of an agency environment, it really taught me everything about what I didn't want a studio to be. Mostly because of what you just said. There's just the inherent bureaucracy of large organizations. It's hard to keep people motivated and to make them feel like they're an important part of the operation when they're just, they're one of a cast of thousands. And that's like literally that happens. You're a cast of thousands sometimes. So when we set out to create a studio, we knew from the very beginning that we wanted it to be a small studio. We wanted to be able to all sit around the table and have a conversation. And Julia, my partner, and I wanted to remain involved in the creative direction of the projects rather than to just become managers and business people, which we suck at. We're not. So yeah, it totally creates a different culture in the studio. I think the culture that you create in your design environment not only like has tremendous effects on the output that you generate, but it determines everything. It's one of the most interesting things of running a studio because every studio has a different personality. Even every small studio has a very different personality, and it's it's kind of a joy to constantly iterate on that and to be very aware of what makes people tick, what keeps them satisfied, what keeps them motivated. Because ultimately, I mean, when you're a big brand and you're a big agency, there's always going to be rotation, and so the people aren't really the brand. The brand is just the brand because it's so big that people just believe in it because it's been around and because they believe it's big and whatever past successes, etc. But our brand is really all about the people who happen to be here at the time. We make the brand every day, and so if you're
Hmm.
not very careful about you know how that is sort of all that ecosystem is managed, things can get unbalanced very quickly. So yeah, we pay a lot of attention to the happiness and the well-being of the environment because we know that we're gonna enjoy our day more. We're gonna feel more fulfilled. We're gonna create better work, and we're gonna want to do it for longer.
A couple things going on in the chat room right now. One of our guests realized that if you're watching this on DesignChat info, designchat.info/chat, it's difficult to participate in the chat, the actual chat room part of this. So if you want to log out of that and go to spreecast.com /events/hyperakt, and it's easier to chat in this experience. We'll be fixing that on the main page in the short term. This is our second time using Spreecast. We love the service. It's been a great upgrade. There's lots of great features, but we're still kind of working out the kinks, so sorry about that, guys. A quick shout out to Gerard Dolan. He says, hola from Toronto. Great to see people from other countries. And actually, I follow Gerard on Facebook. He always posts some cool stuff about agency life once in a while. It's nice to see you in the chat, Gerard. What's going on? Chime in if you want to. Ask some questions. Mitch Goldstein is convinced that people are taking naked pictures of themselves at studios. It's a thing, apparently. Mitch thinks. He's a smart guy, so that might be true. I don't know. Deroy, you might have seen those. Maybe they're hiding those from you. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not quite. I think that works really well for Sagmeister and Jessica Walsh, but doesn't quite work as well for us.
That's become part of their brand. Sagmeister's been taking naked pictures of himself for like 30 years now, man.
Yeah, it kind of. I mean, I love his work. I have a lot of respect for it, and it works for him. I don't think it would work for us.
Dude likes to be naked. It's cool. He's European, man. That's all. I mean, what do you want?
Hey, it fits well with the clients that he works with. It wouldn't fit so well with some of our clients.
No naked pictures of Alan, just so everybody knows. Another interesting aspect that I saw, in a brief sort of overview of your group there, your founding partner, Julia Vasker-Zeltzer, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, also having come from being born in another country, coming to the U.S., studying and starting to work in this country, you said at a very early on stage, you guys both realized that your work ethics were similar. At a very sort of intense level. Talk a little bit about that relationship and why you think that works for you, having come to the U.S. from different countries.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. I think that's definitely part of our dynamic. So Julia and I met really first day of foundation at Parsons. We went to school together throughout college, and we had this kind of very healthy sort of competitive relationship where she would do a project and I would think it was awesome and better than everybody else's in class, and I would just be kind of pissed that I hadn't done something as well, and so I would try to outdo her, and we would kind of and it was always a very friendly, trying to help each other out kind of competitive thing. And
healthy competition.
Yeah, it was a healthy competition, and after we graduated, she was working at a kind of very corporate studio that was doing some pretty stale stuff, and I had tried doing some kind of short freelance gigs at studios, and I was not very good at doing that because I have a problem being on time to places and functioning on other people's schedules. So I would piss a lot of people off, and I was kind of young and not very mature yet about these things, so I would get pissed off at them, and it just was not meant to be. I kind of knew right away that I either figured out a way to make money on my own, or and to start something on my own, or it wasn't going to work. So I kind of followed one freelance thing to another, and it kind of started to add up. And after about a year, Julia and I had stayed in contact throughout. Every time I would do a freelance gig, I would show it to her, get her opinion, because she was sort of the person I trusted the most in our class, to give me an honest opinion, even if it was going to hurt, and to try to help me work through a problem. And so we would do that for each other, and eventually, after about a year and a half or so, I asked her if she wanted to do something together, because we balanced each other's personality well. I mean, The work ethic thing is part of it. Julia's Ukrainian. I'm Cuban. I don't know if it's something that's built into just the situation of being an immigrant and sort of coming here and appreciating having opportunity to make of your life what you want to make of it or what you can make of it, uh, or just the examples of our parents. I'm not sure what it is, but I do know that uh, being at Parsons, as hard and as big of a challenge as it was for me, and looking at myself in high school, to get to get a scholarship to come to New York, it was like my dream. And then to be there and to see that a lot of people were kind of just not working. They were, they were the kind of the few that worked really hard and wanted to really, learn and grow. And then there was a lot of people who were just kind of along for the ride, and I just didn't get it. And Julia and I were both on that really kind of focused. Like we knew we wanted to get the most out of this situation, out of this, out of the opportunity of having that education. So that we could immediately, we knew that we could trust each other, and that if we said we were going to do something one way or another, we would get it done, and we would back each other up. And that's a really hard thing to find in a partner. It's really hard to find a partner, especially when you're a little bit further along in your career, because there's always that question of, are they going to do more than I am? Am I going to have to, pull a heavier load, or can I trust that they'll get this thing done, or whatever? And having started from nothing, basically, because neither one of us really had any money to start a business. We were both illustration majors, so we had no really design. I mean, we had done design internships, but we didn't have really very formal design education. So we
Hmm.
kind of like looking at it now, looking back, we had kind of a lot of things against us, and it didn't look very likely that we would succeed. But we somehow just knew that if we kind of kept going and kept working and supported each other, we would kind of somehow make something out of it. So yeah, I mean, the other thing is that our personalities are very different. Julia's much more cautious and conservative in her decision making, and I'm more of a risk taker, and I like trying to think out of the box and do new things. Not that she doesn't, but I just go there more, and she kind of helps to balance things out so that I don't go off into the clouds. So that's an important thing in running a business, and having
Hmm.
that balance to make sure that there's some kind of stability.
There's this great thing that's sort of built into your name, being able to call people that work with you and around you hyperactivists. I thought that was really interesting. Was that something that's sort of pre-planned when you're thinking about your identity? And have you been called Hyperact the whole time?
Yes. Well, I mean, it originated from a nickname I had as a child that my mother used to call me, which was in Spanish and was way too hard to pronounce. Uh, and not that hyperact is much easier to pronounce because everybody calls us hypercat, but but it was much harder to pronounce, and it was all rooted up in this idea of hyperactivity, because I was a hyperactive child and I was all over the place. So the name kind of originated from there, but I mean, this is in 2001. Um, we had just broadband just kind of became available at home, like the .com bubble was like about to, or in the process of kind of exploding.
And just
But it
days
was
before
clear
the
that
9/11 attack, also, if I'm correct, right?
yeah, the URL was registered on September 7th, 2011.
Well,
So yeah, 4 days before the September 11th attack,
well.
which we thought, it kind of seemed like a crazy time to start a new venture, but everything kind of just stopped for months after that, and so it was actually kind of a great time to regroup and to reset and get our stuff together and start something fresh. But Yeah, the intention was there. I wanted it to be an active word. I wanted it to be sort of a dare, you know, to engage, to do something, to participate. So you know, more than to act, but to hyperact. And the hyperactivist thing, it just kind of grew out of that.
Well,
It's,
and
I
you
mean, you
definitely,
know, again, a lot of the work that we do is sort of very aspirational in nature, and so that means that you know you have to kind of be into it. That you have to be into the passion. It's like you have to believe in it, you know. And hyperactive, the term hyperactivist, I think, you know, captures that you believe in this in the mission of the studio and are more than
and you
just.
take the activity beyond your client work and work for good causes. It's you do live talks at your studio. You taught at the School of Design for 4 years or so. It seems to become, this is more than just a job for you. It's not like this is a 9 to 5. You are actively pursuing interactions between people that will ultimately benefit the greater good.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think any job that you do like really, really, really well is more than a job. And I'm not trying to say that we do our job really well. What I'm trying to say is that in order to have the chance of doing anything to the maximum, it's got to be like your life, you know. And so for us, there's very little boundary between design, work, and life. It kind of permeates into everything. I mean, you know, the events that we do in the studio, um, we happen to be, you know, we're fortunate to be in a community in Brooklyn of designers that is very, I mean, not only is there a tremendous amount of talent, but they're super friendly people, because the interesting thing about New York is that a lot of people come from all over the place. Most
Right.
people that are here are not really from here, and so that puts you in this kind of situation of needing to meet people to feel like you belong to a place. And so everybody that comes to Brooklyn tends to be, you know, at least in the design scene, tends to be very friendly and very open and very interested in seeing what everybody else is doing and you know collaborating and networking and stuff. And so we thought that you know our studio is a storefront in Carroll Gardens on a street called Smith Street, which happens to be we're kind of at the lower end of a busy sort of restaurant and a strip with a lot of restaurants and shops and stuff. So it's a public facing space, and we've always kind of wanted to bring people into the space and to you know have it be a place where people can do this. So about 2.5 years ago, we started hosting lunch talks.
Hmm.
It's very simple. It's kind of like this, but in real life. We have somebody come in. We invite a speaker. We have lunch catered from a local sandwich shop. Makes great sandwiches.
Hmm.
Uh, People come in and mingle and chat for a little bit for 15 minutes. We fit about 15 or 30 people in a very small space, so they're all tightly crammed together and forced to communicate. And then it's an informal talk. People can interrupt, ask questions during the talk, and then kind of hang out and have more food and whatever. And that's led to, so we've done it now 27 times. We're doing it again this Friday. It's going to be the speaker's going to be Lance Wyman, who, if you don't know Lance Wyman, you should look him up. He's kind of a design legend. He designed the '68 Mexico Olympics identity, along with several uh, subway system maps and icon systems and stuff. He's amazing and a great storyteller. But we've been able to, you know, we started with just kind of people we knew, and then after we did a few of them, we just said, you know, fuck it, let's just ask people who we never, you know, who might say no. So we've had, and we've been surprised. I mean,
I'm
we
familiar
don't
with
pay
that
people to do this.
formula.
Yeah, it's great. So you know, we've had like Paula Scher, we've had Eddie Opara, we've had Stephen Heller. I mean, you name it, and basically like the pantheon of living New York designers has come and done like a little lunch talk at like this little joint in Brooklyn,
I could listen to
and
Eddie
have
O'Hara read the thesaurus. I mean, who doesn't want to listen to
yeah,
that guy talk all day? Not just for the content of what he's saying, but how he says it.
yeah. I mean, that guy. I mean, he's brilliant, but the surprising thing about all of these people is that you usually see them at big conferences with big shining lights, and you're far away from them, and they sound like they're really far away from you. But when you put them in a room and like the first row of people sitting in front of them is literally 3 feet away from them, they become like real people and they act like real people and they tell you personal stories and you're like engaging with them like you're in a living room
Yeah.
and it's fascinating. It's really cool to see that these are nice normal people. They're not like I don't know, weird movie star god people. They're just normal, and but they've got great experiences and great work to share. So that's a really we really enjoy that. I mean, it's both a chance to bring the community into the studio to get basically like you know talks and lessons and new ideas shipped directly into our studio on a regular basis. And it's really a pretty easy to produce thing. I mean, we
Come
spend like
over and have a
whatever $200
sandwich.
on sandwiches, and that's it, and just
Hang
open up the
out in front of
space.
your computer with a drink. It's that's a
Yeah,
great formula.
it's a good thing. For a good chunk of the first sort of 6 or 7 years of our existence, we were so busy just trying to work and learn things and pay the bills that we just sat in front of our computer for most of the time and didn't really interact much with the world around us. And as soon as we made a conscious effort to really start doing that, it really changed a lot of things about the studio. It's amazing how much just rubs off from talking to people and from interacting and I'm not just talking about making connections to get new business. It's about finding people to collaborate with, finding people who have similar ideas, finding inspiration. All that stuff is super valuable.
And it's amazing how much the dynamic can change once you take the blinders off. I mean, because we stare at rectangles, glowing rectangles all day, whether it's a computer or the phone or the TV, and you kind of forget about your physical surroundings. And I'm sure being in Brooklyn, it's different than most places with the saturation that you guys have, and the talent and the similar interests and that sort of thing. But I mean, the
Yeah.
same thing could be said, for a small town in Ohio. If you're not going out and talking to anyone, you're not going to meet anyone. You're not going to learn anything. So there's something to be said for taking off the blinders and actually participating in your community. And what the
Yeah, and
intrinsic
often smaller
value that will
cities have
bring. Go ahead.
and often smaller cities have even more tight knit communities because it's a smaller group of people. It's interesting. It just kind of depends on the personality of the city itself and what the city breeds. I was a couple of years ago. I lived in Boston for 8 months while my wife was doing a master's degree, and while I was up there, a friend, great designer, Ben Perat was in Boston as well. Ben Perat was the founder of Supply, if you guys know it, amongst other things. Ben and I got together and we tried to get these kind of monthly meetups for drinks with designers in Boston. We just kind of reached out to people we know on Twitter and whatever, and just kind of tried to invite everybody just to have a friendly, like, let's just have like some beers and talk about what we're making and whatever.
Mhm.
And over the 8 months, it grew, and there were definitely we would get 50 people out to one of these things after the first one was like 4 people. Um, but the vibe was so different. It's the vibe in Boston is just so different than in Brooklyn or I don't know. So I think it definitely the city definitely affects the personality of the group behavior. But I mean, you got to do it. It's just such an important thing. You have to try to bring people together and learn from them.
DesignChat links run by Andrew Tibbetts, the great Andrew Tibbetts, who helps us put on DesignChat. Just put up a Google Maps link that actually shows, it's on Street View, and it shows the front of your building there. It's totally awesome. Just click on that and see it.
Oh,
And
sweet.
there's someone standing in that photo. I don't know if you've clicked on it yet,
Oh,
but there's a
man.
young woman standing in that photo,
Yeah,
looking at the camera. Do you know who that is?
absolutely. So that photo was taken actually during one of our lunch talks, and she happened to arrive late, and she was kind of she's so that is Kelly Anderson. Do you guys know Kelly Anderson? Kelly Anderson's a fantastic designer. If you don't know her, you should check out her work because it's amazing. It's Kelly, Kellie Anderson. But she's a total sweetheart and very shy, and she didn't want to interrupt the lunch talk. So she was kind of standing on the outside the studio, pondering whether she should come in or not come in. And eventually, I think, came in.
She
But
became a part of history. What a moment of serendipity that is.
yeah, the Google truck busted her.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's great though. Her amazing.
So let's get it. Let's dig in. Wow, it's already 8:45 here, and we've only got 15 minutes left in the show. It always amazes me how fast it just flies by. Let's get into some of the work that you guys do. Obviously, there's a heavy theme of social responsibility, but there's also a theme of infographic. You know, if you want to call it that, complex groups of data that you, or stories that you tell through illustration and type. You guys, obviously, you're doing very well with that sort of thing. Talk a little bit about how you guys approach it, and then your view of like why it has risen to be, you know, such a like an internet pop culture sensation in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's a question that we get that is kind of always asked of us, and it's a good question. So why is it popular? It's popular
You're
because
sick of answering it. I'm sorry.
oh, not at all, not at all. I think it's a great question because they just kind of came from out of nowhere. It seems like, and all of a sudden they're everywhere.
Yeah.
It happened because of a variety of reasons. It happened because after the rise of broadband and just the kind of the increasing importance of the internet, organizations and governmental agencies and whatever started posting data, open data that was accessible, and then people started doing stuff with the data.
Big data.
Big data, yeah. And that's happening more and more, and it's kind of a huge thing now because people realize that if you actually empower people with this data and let them do stuff with it, that you can actually make important decisions about things that are informed by the data, and and people can get a just deeper understanding of what's going on a variety of on whatever the issue may be. So there's that. There's just so accessibility to data, which is on the rise and will continue to rise. And then there's definitely trendsetters. I mean, I think Wired magazine had a big impact. They had a section called info porn in the magazine that kind of established that very pop information overload design aesthetic.
Fatco, Good. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
so
a handful of them that are doing that really well.
right. So I think when Good started, they kind of took that formula and thought, well, shit, if it works for technology, why wouldn't it work for, social issues and politics and urbanism and whatever? And so that really propelled Good. The New York Times does a fantastic job of it, and their data team has grown over the years, and I mean, and everybody reads the New York Times, at least in New York, so it reaches the masses, and people are more used to seeing it. It drives a tremendous amount of user engagement online, and there's tons of blogs, and when a blog gets a prepackaged, ready-made infographic that they can attach to their article, it makes their article more interesting, and people comment more. So there's definitely a growing, and this started with this is kind of spread to every industry now, or is at least in the process of spreading to every industry. Every company wants to have infographics of the data they have, because now they realize that their data is valuable and they can turn it into a communication piece. The same goes for organizations. So, you know, the work we do for the Ford Foundation, the Gates Foundation, for TED, you know, these clients have a lot of information that can be very compelling if presented, you know, in the right context and in the right way. So, you know, infographics weren't invented over the last 2 years. They've been around for, you know, at least 200 years. They've just finally met their optimal medium, which is the internet.
Shareability, you
Yeah,
know, has changed. You know,
yeah,
the sharing of information and getting credit for having shared that information is a new paradigm, right?
yeah.
And getting the virtual pat on the back for
Exactly.
having
And you know,
recognized the importance of the data.
a good infographic will make the reader feel like they're able to at least have some understanding of a complicated issue that they previously did not understand. A bad infographic will make the reader feel intimidated and more confused, and will make them feel dumb because they don't get it. And that's usually not the fault of the reader. In fact, it's always not the fault of the reader, because the point of the piece is to make it easy for the reader to understand. So for us, you know, the most important, and infographics, so just to be clear, an infographic is just another medium of communication, just like an annual report is, or a website is, or it's just another way of delivering packets of information that people need to be able to understand. So just like you create a wireframe and a structure, and you plan out the way that you're going to build a website before you actually build it, we do the same thing for infographics. We don't start by thinking about, you know, what beautiful texture, what pretty skin we're going to put on the thing, and how many, you know, bits of information we're going to be able to cram into the space. We start by identifying what it is that we're trying to communicate, what the most important point we need to make is, by looking at the data, by editing it down to the simplest packets of information that we can display, because we're not trying to teach people the extent of whatever subject matter we're trying to communicate. We're just trying to get them some top level information so that they want to dig deeper, and so they you know, want to go elsewhere to find more information. There's only so much information that a user, that a reader is going to retain when they look at these things. So, you know, we try to keep it as simple as possible, and we try to create very clear hierarchies to lead the user, the reader, through the sort of narrative of the piece. So there's usually a
Basic
primary.
principles of design still apply.
Yeah, it's really, you know, it's the same logic that you would apply to any other design piece.
And you gave an example, a good example of a good infographic, a bad infographic, but I would suggest there's a third category, an evil infographic. Just
Yeah,
like any other piece of design that misrepresents the information of the data, it's on the onus of the reader to be skeptic at sometimes about what they're reading and paying attention and awareness.
yeah, that's a very good point. You know, the one of the reasons that brands love infographics so much is because, you know, they look data-y and sort of academic, and because there's data on them, and that inherently leads people to just kind of default to believing them because they look so serious and put together. But that is in fact not the case. It totally depends on, you know, the motives of the creator and the skill of the editor and designer who put it together, and data scientists who found the data. So, you know, we encourage people to be very careful about what they believe, and we try to be very careful about what data we include in our work, and we're very, you know, we push back often on our clients to make sure that, you know, when they're declaring something, they can back it up, or they've considered the flip side. You know, if they say they're really good because they've done this and that, you know, what are the negative consequences of this thing, and are they, do they outweigh those? We try to just present things in as fair a light as possible. And the other thing we do is we just don't take work from people who we think are just using the data to skew a story to get you to believe what they have to say. So we don't work with PR agencies. And they all want infographics. And generally, the brands that we do work with on infographics are very reputable brands that use, very reputable sources of information like UN data, World Bank data, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, the same can be said of a print piece and a poster and a website. Any medium can be used for good or for evil, to inform or misinform, and it's our responsibility as designers to, make a judgment on how, we want to use our tools.
Just minutes to go here. I always like to do a segment where we turn the tables and we have the guests ask a question of the audience. So, Deroy, think real quick about a question you want to ask them, and I'll make a couple announcements. Again, like I said at the top of the show, we've got Tyler Fink on next week. He helped create an app called Piction. It's a really cool app on iOS. I'm not totally sure if you can get it on Android yet. You can put text on a photo, and it's just a clean app, and there's no junk in the way, and it's really beautiful. So definitely check that out. We're going to be talking to him next week. And we've got to work on, I've got to work on getting some guests for the following week after that, but I promise we're going to keep this show rolling. This is episode, hey, Andrew in the chat room, see if you, do you know how many episodes we've done? What is this, like 119 or like 120? I think this is like episode around 119 or 120. TylerFink.com, that's good. That's also, guys, that's in the chat room, DesignChat links. That's also a Twitter account, so we post links that we talked about in that Twitter account. So if you're trying to remember something later on, you can go back to that Twitter account. It's just at DesignChat links. And that's it for announcements for right now. Deroy, do you got a question for the audience?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess I'm curious to hear whether people feel like they're doing work that is satisfying them. Because I mean, to me, it always comes back to this idea of like, why do you do what you do, and what do you get out of it? So I'm curious to hear how many people are really excited about the work they're doing, and how many people are just trying to figure out how to get there.
I was going to type that answer in, but Mitch, we haven't had a show in a while. That's why that account looks a little dead, because we haven't been doing anything. I kind of went into hibernation over Christmas and New Year's, but we're back, so it's happening. So yeah, I mean, happiness is always a big topic of conversation in the design community. I think because it's polarizing, right? There are a lot of people with really shitty jobs, and there are people who are sort of writing their own future and designing their own life, such as yourself, who can find, although it's not easy, it's not an easy life. It's very difficult, but you find a sort of higher level of general happiness because you're doing the things you want to do. And Mike Lascona says, if it's designing, then it's satisfying. Well, that's amazing. Mitch, I can only do work I care about. That's why I teach and research. If I was smart, I'd be putting these on screen. Mitch is very passionate, has been on the show, suggested many guests for us. I call him the patron saint of DesignChat. He's amazing. If you guys aren't familiar, check him out, Mitch Goldstein. If you had seen the Angry Paul Rand account, he was behind that. Bows. Life is too short to be irritated with what you do. Mitch Smith. Okay, hold on a second, buddy. Oh, he moved. Shit. Hold on. Put on screen. I need to find a new job. I'm pretty sure you were saying that last year, Mitch. Jesse, good to see you on. Another employee. I completely forgot to mention. We are broadcasting from Symbolic. A big shout out and thank you to Symbolic, smbolic.com, a great design group here in West Dundee, Illinois. Jesse, a designer from Symbolic, says I've done a lot I'm excited about. The things that I've done at work that do not make me happy are somewhat inevitable, but I do a lot on my own time that really makes me happy. I mean, you do have to accept a certain, maybe you do or don't. I don't know. If you're dealing with clients, it's not always going to be roses and sunshine. There's going to be some things that you compromise on.
Absolutely.
But I mean, so goes the life of the designer, right?
And I want to throw in that I'm not suggesting that people need to do what we do in order to be happy. I'm just saying that, if you aren't happy, then find what makes you happy, and just try to find the shortest route of getting there. It's always hard work, but if you just kind of persist in a not satisfying situation, you're not going to get to happiness. So that's all I was trying to suggest.
Everybody follow Mitch at MGOLDST, MGoldst. Half and half from Andrew.
You want to get a quick look at the studio?
Oh, you're going to flip the camera around? Yeah, go ahead. Give us a quick interactive tour here.
I'll walk you around a little bit. It's empty because it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and everybody's hopefully drunk by now. Let's see. This is the front of the shop. So that's what you were seeing from the outside on Google Maps.
Nice. I like the exposed brick. Very nice. Wow, holy crap. Is that a mirror, or is it like 1,000 feet deep back there?
It's a mirror. It's only 60 feet deep. It's actually, we have 850 square feet. It's a very small studio. There's some shit in the back right now because we just got some new furniture, but everybody kind of sits very tightly together. And then you can write on all the walls.
You can't see it, but Andrew said you can smell each other.
We can definitely smell each other. This is the little neighborhoods corner.
Wow, I feel like I'm part of the family.
Yeah. This is our favorite toy. A little laser.
Is that a light box?
It's a laser engraver.
A laser. Holy crap.
Yeah, we make these. One of the things that we another thing that we're kind of working on developing and growing is self-initiated projects. So we call it labs projects. And each designer is basically just, we give them time to develop their own products, and we kind of use the resources of the team to bring them to market. And one of the first products that we launched was Neighborwoods. It's neighborwoodmaps.com. They're laser engraved maps of city neighborhoods in aromatic cedar wood.
Oh, that's awesome.
So this is the backyard. It's a little dark. You probably won't be able to see much, but we have a little deck and
party deck.
Party deck. We have a pull-down movie screen in the back, barbecue, etc. We try to use the backyard as much as possible in the warmer months. So that's it. That's the space.
I've asked this of almost every guest I've had who's from New York. I've never been to New York, but when I do come, can I crash at your place? Because it's awesome.
You're totally welcome to. You won't be the first person to sleep in the studio, I guarantee it.
Nice. Well, it was really great to get a tour of the studio and to get to know more about you and the whole group. I can't believe I went through this whole hour without asking about the Champions Ring. I'm sure you're totally tired of talking about it by this point. But if you guys aren't familiar, look up the Champions Ring. I think it's thechampionsring.com. It's a very cool project that Deroy did. Critical acclaim, especially if you're a sports fan.
It's champsring.com, actually.
Champsring.
Yeah.
I couldn't go the hour without at least noting it. Badass, bravo, I love it. I'm sure you've heard that a million times, but I'm saying it now. So that's it. That's DesignChat. That's what this is. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody you know, post about it, blog about it. Deroy, bravo, thank you for coming on. Very much enjoyed being able to chat with you.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Cool. Good night, everybody. Till next week. #DesignChat. Talk to you soon.